When this fight starts, the first question is simple. Can Justin Gaethje turn this into a fast-paced fight before it becomes a grappling match? Because once that's decided, the paths are very clear. For Gaethje, the path is direct. He needs to attack Paddy's legs early and consistently, not just for damage, but to slow the younger fighter's movement and entries. Hard low kicks force Pimblett to reset, widen his stance, and think twice about level changes. That opens the door for Gaethje to do what he does best. Push a pace that's uncomfortable, consistent pressure, exchanges in the pocket, and making every minute physical. Gaethje thrives when fights turn into attrition, and Pimblett has shown a tendency to slow down when the tempo stays high. If Gaethje keeps him reaching instead of initiating, the fight shifts into his strongest territory. Chaotic exchanges where durability, pressure, and experience start to separate the two. This only works if Gaethje doesn't give Paddy clean grappling entries. On the other side, Paddy Pimblett needs a very different fight. His priority is disrupting Gaethje's rhythm and dragging the fight away from extended striking exchanges. That means mixing level changes into the chaos, not predictable shots, but scrambles, back takes, and moments where Gaethje is forced to defend instead of advance. Once Pimblett can create uncertainty, his unorthodox striking starts to matter. Flying knees, quick straight shots, and sudden attacks up the middle can catch Gaethje between wide swings, especially if Gaethje overcommits while chasing damage. If Pimblett can get this fight to the mat, or even force prolonged grappling sequences, he pulls Gaethje out of his comfort zone and into moments where submission threats are real. So this isn't about who hits harder, this is about who controls the tempo longer, and that is the pressure point. This fight is decided by who gets to impose their world first, because once that happens, the margin for adjustment gets very small. For Kayla Harrison, the path is straightforward. She needs to close the distance immediately and force this fight into the clinch. Olympic-level judo thrives in tight space. Body locks, inside trips, mat returns, especially along the fence where the movement is limited. Once the fight hits the ground, Harrison's job is control and accumulation. Heavy top pressure, steady ground and pound, and making Nunes carry her weight. This isn't about rushing a finish, it's about grinding minutes and taxing the arms and the legs of Nunes. If Harrison keeps the pace high and forces repeated clinch exchanges, the fight slowly shifts into attrition. Championship rounds favor her if she's been able to drain Nunes early and often. But this only works if she can get inside cleanly. On the other side, Amanda Nunes needs space. Her priority is strong takedown defense and immediate lateral movement off of the fence. Historically, she's neutralized elite grapplers by stuffing early attempts and forcing them to strike longer than they want to. Once Nunes establishes range, that's where her offense opens up. Long combinations, fast 1-2s, and a mixing in of low kicks and step-in knees as Harrison presses forward. Harrison's aggression creates windows, but only if Nunes can keep the fight standing. If Harrison slows or becomes predictable on entries, Nunes has the power and volume to flip momentum quickly. So this fight isn't about who is more accomplished. This is about who controls the terms of engagement longer. That's where this fight is won or lost. When this matchup starts, the first question is simple. Who gets to dictate where the exchanges happen? Because range changes everything here. For Sean O'Malley, the path is precision and control. He needs to target Song's lead leg early, especially with calf kicks that disrupt the balance and timing. Slowing Song's footwork makes his foot forward pressure easier to read and easier to punish. From there, it's about pace without chaos, high volume, smart shot selection, and forcing Song to overextend. O'Malley doesn't need wild exchanges. He needs Song reaching, lunging, and walking into counters. When Song commits recklessly, that's where O'Malley's timing shows up. Sharp pull counters, straight shots down the middle, and damage accumulates while giving up position. If O'Malley keeps the fight long and controlled, the scoring and damage starts to tilt his way. But this only works if he avoids getting trapped along the fence. On the other side, Song Yadong needs pressure. His priority is cutting off the cage and forcing O'Malley to fight off his back foot. Close range exchanges reduce O'Malley's reach advantage and turn the fight into something physical. Once inside, Song's offense opens up. Heavy calf kicks of his own to slow O'Malley's movement, hooks to the body in close exchanges, and constant forward intent. The goal is to drain speed and timing as the rounds go on. If O'Malley slows or starts circling predictably, Song's pressure and power can take over late. So this isn't about volume versus pressure. This is about who keeps the fight in their preferred range longer. And that's the hinge point of this whole matchup. When this fight starts, the first question is simple. Can Waldo Cortes Acosta force Derek Lewis to work every second of the round? Because once that's answered, the fight takes shape quickly. For Cortes Acosta, the path is volume and persistence. He needs to stay busy behind a stiff jab, double up his combinations, and keep Lewis reacting instead of setting his feet. This isn't about one big moment. It's about making Lewis defend, reset, and breathe without long pauses. A key part of this investing in the body is hooks into the midsection and the occasional front kick to the gut to force Lewis to carry fatigue earlier than he wants to. The more Waldo can make this into a drawn-out fight, the more he pulls power away from Lewis's hands. If Cortes Acosta keeps the output steady and avoids extended lulls, the fight shifts into a pace where consistency and cardio start to matter more than explosiveness. But this only works if he doesn't linger in the pocket too long. On the other side, Derek Lewis is playing a totally different game. His priority is patience. Lewis doesn't need volume. He just needs one moment. Letting Waldo throw while staying composed gives Lewis opportunities to time a right hand or an uppercut when Lewis Acosta steps in just a little bit too close. If this fight goes to the clinch or the mat, Lewis's job is simple. Just get up. Explode out, reset, and keep the fight vertical. Every second spent grappling is time wasted for Lewis. If Cortes Acosta overcommits or starts to slow, Lewis has the power to end it instantly. So this isn't about output versus power, it's about whether activity can outrun danger, and that is the pressure point. This matchup comes down to control and where it happens, because both fighters are dangerous, but in very different ways. For Arnold Allen, his path is discipline and angles. He needs to fight smart at range early, using his jab and straight left to interrupt Silva's forward movement. Touching Silva on the way in makes him hesitate, and hesitation limits explosion. From there, Allen's combinations matter. 2 and 3 punch sequences followed by quick pivots can catch Silva's mid-attack when his hands are low and his weight is forward. Allen doesn't need prolonged exchanges. He needs clean entries and clean exits. If Allen stays patient and keeps resetting the range, he can force Silva to chase moments that aren't there. But this only works if he avoids getting drawn into extended firefights. On the other side, Gene Silva needs disruption. His priority is using feints and level changes to draw reactions before committing. A fake step in, a brief level change, and it gets Allen to adjust his guard. It creates an opening for Silva's real attack. When Allen shells up, Silva's bodywork becomes critical. Ripping hooks and around kicks to the ribs forces Allen to lower his guard, and once that happens, his head is exposed. Silva has proven knockout power, but the key is creating the opening rather than forcing it. If Silva can keep Allen reacting instead of dictating, the momentum can swing very quickly. So this isn't about technique versus power, it's about who controls the reactions longer, and that is the hinge point of this fight. When this fight starts, the first question is simple. Who gets to decide the range and how long it stays there? Because once that's answered, the fight becomes to separate. For Umar Nurmagomedov, the path is control through movement. He needs to operate on the outside early, using footwork and quick kicks to keep Figueiredo from settling into the pocket. Kicks to the legs and the body from long range serve 2 purposes. They score and they frustrate. Umar doesn't need to rush exchanges. Staying light on his feet forces Figueiredo to press, and that pressure is what opens the door for takedowns. The more Figgy feels like he has to close distance aggressively, the more predictable his entries will become. That's when Umar's striking and wrestling exchanges matter. A fast jab, a spinning back kick, or a sudden level change off of a kick forces Figueiredo to cover up. And once his stance is compromised, Umar can kick or can duck under and get to the legs. From there, it's about changing attempts. Umar doesn't rely on the one shot. He flows from single to double to body lock to mat return. That grinding style, averaging well over 3 takedowns per 15 minutes, is his best advantage if he can keep the fight orderly. If Umar controls the distance early and mixes takedowns consistently, the fight shifts into his world, but that only works if he avoids the early damage. On the other side, Deiveson Figueiredo needs urgency with discipline. His priority is starting fast and making Umar uncomfortable before the wrestling rhythm develops. Figgy's power is real, even at this weight. And explosive overhand rights and left hooks in the opening exchanges are his best chance to disrupt Umar's timing. A hurt Umar changes everything. Slower shots mean messier entries, and that's where mistakes happen. If the fight hits the mat, patience matters. Figueiredo shouldn't panic on his back. As a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt with multiple submission wins, scrambles are opportunities, not danger. Guillotines, armbars, and sudden attacks during transitions are real threats if Umar gets careless. If Umar leaves an arm in while ground and pounding, or shoots without a clean position, Figueiredo can flip the momentum instantly. So this isn't about who's more technical overall, it's about who controls the terms of engagement longer. Distance versus chaos, rhythm versus explosion. That's the pressure point of this matchup. When this fight starts, the first question is simple. Can Nikita Krylov turn this into a fast-paced fight before Bukauskas finds his rhythm? Because rhythm favors space and disruption favors pressure. For Krylov, his path is urgency. He needs to push the pace early and force Bukauskas onto his back foot. Crowding space limits Bukauskas' kicking game and turns the fight into close-range exchanges where Krylov's elbows and clenched knees are very effective. Blending attacks is key. Threatening with kicks and then changing levels into takedowns keeps Bukauskas off balance. The goal isn't just to score takedowns, it's to prevent Bukauskas from ever getting comfortable. If Krylov keeps the pressure layered and varied, the fight stays chaotic and chaos favors him. But this only works if he doesn't gas himself early. On the other side, Modestas Bukauskas needs space and patience. His priority is staying off of the cage and maintaining the center. Circling out using underhooks and resetting at range limits Krylov's ability to swarm or clinch. Once he has space, body attacks matter. Kicks to the midsection and knees and close sap Krylov's gas tank and slow his explosiveness. A fatigued Krylov is far less dangerous both on the feet and with entries. If Bukauskas can survive the early push and slow the pace, his kickboxing starts to take over. So this isn't about who starts faster, it's about who controls the tempo longer, and that's where this fight is decided. When this fight starts, the first question is simple. Can Atiba Gauthier keep this long enough to land clean? Or does Andre Poliev force him to slow down? Because range changes everything here. For Atiba Gauthier, his path is distance and structure. At 6'4", he needs to fight tall and disciplined. Long straight punches, kicks from the outside, and shots that land before Poliev can answer. The jab right cross down the middle forces Poliev to guard high, and that opens space for head kicks from Gauthier's rangy legs. But the key isn't just power, it's variation. Investing in leg kicks early lowers Poliev's stance and slows his entries. Mixing in body shots forces his guard to drift. Once Poliev starts guessing, that's when Gauthier's one-strike knockout power becomes dangerous. If Gauthier stays composed and doesn't rush the finish, his size and reach can dictate the exchanges. But this only works if he doesn't empty his tank early. On the other side, Andre Poliev needs patience. His priority is surviving the early surge, high guard, footwork, and making Gauthier miss during those first chaotic moments. Every miss strikes, drains explosiveness. Once Gutierrez starts to slow, Polyev can shift gears, clinch work, and level exchanges, interrupt rhythm, and force Gutierrez to defend instead of attack. Even brief takedown attempts or fence pressure can sap the energy and reset momentum. If Polyev can turn this into a measured fight instead of a sprint, the balance starts to tilt. So this isn't about who hits harder, it's about whether pace breaks power. That's the hinge point. This matchup hinges on one thing: who gets to dictate the legs early. Because once movement is compromised, everything else follows. For Alex Perez, his path starts immediately. He needs to hammer that lead calf from the opening bell. Perez's low kicks aren't just damage, they're control. Slowing Johnson's footwork limits the in and out movement that keeps him safe. From there, mixing levels becomes critical. Perez's wrestling pedigree allows him to punish overextensions. A well-timed double leg or even a brief clinch forces Johnson to think twice before committing to volume. On the mat, submission threats, especially the guillotine or back control, keep Johnson wary. If Perez can combine leg damage with the threat of takedowns, he shrinks the fight round by round. But this only works if he can close the distance safely. On the other side, Charles Johnson needs space and rhythm. His priority is staying long, jabbing, front kicks, quick 1-2s, and immediate exits. With a clear reach advantage, touching Perez without lingering keeps him ahead on the scorecards and out of danger. Volume matters here. By staying busy, Johnson forces Perez to react instead of setting traps. Constant peppering shots also discourage level changes and slow Perez's pressure over time. If Johnson keeps the pace high and the range long, his movement and gas tank become weapons. So this isn't about striking versus wrestling, this is about who controls the movement first, and that is where this fight is decided. When the cage door closes, the first question is simple. Does Josh Hokett get to his chaos early, or does Denzel Freeman survive it? Because the opening minutes define this fight. For Hokett, the path is explosion. He needs to blitz from the opening bell with heavy punches and immediate pressure. Early flurries prevent Freeman from settling in, finding range, or initiating clinch work. Staying in the center is critical. Trading in open space gives Hokett room to sprawl if shots come, and space to let his hands go without being smothered. Every time his back nears the fence, he needs to circle out and reset. If Hokett lands clean early, this fight can end fast. But if that initial burst doesn't work, things can get dangerous. On the other side, Denzel Freeman needs control and composure. His priority is clinch pressure. Walking Hokett to the fence allows Freeman to land short shots inside and make Hokett carry his weight, a proven way to drain explosiveness. From there, dirty boxing and occasional trip takedowns keep the fight grinding. Even brief grappling exchanges slow Hokett and reduce the power on his punches. Defense matters too. By entering the pocket behind a jab or a forearm frame, Freeman can pressure without eating clean counters. Slightly tighter defense and wild exchanges can be the difference here. So this isn't about who hits harder, it's about whether early chaos survives sustained pressure. That's the pressure point. When this fight starts, the first question is simple. Can Natalia Silva keep this moving fast enough to stay ahead of Rosa's timing? Because speed changes the equation. For Natalia Silva, the path is movement and variety. She needs to fight light on her feet, bouncing in and out with fast punch and kick combinations that don't linger. Quick entries, jab cross into a spinning back kick, or a fast kick on exit force Rose to reset instead of counter. The higher the pace stays, the more it favors Silva. Agility and constant motion make timing difficult, especially for a fighter who prefers structure. Silva doesn't need to overwhelm, she needs to stay unpredictable and undisciplined. Defensively, grappling awareness is critical. If Rose looks to clinch or shoot, Silva has to rely on underhooks, quick hips, and immediately separate. The goal isn't extended defense, it is breaking contact and returning to open space. If this remains a fast, clean kickboxing match, Silva's speed becomes a deciding factor, but slowing down gives Rose openings. On the other side, Rose Namajunas needs control. Her priority is establishing the jab early, not just to score, but to disrupt Silva's rhythm. A sharp, constant jab forces Silva to reset and think before launching flashy sequences. From there, mixing and grappling becomes important. Catching a kick or closing distance off of an exchange creates opportunities or trips for quick takedown. On the mat, Rose's experience matters, advancing positioning, threatening the back, and making Silva work. If Rose can slow the pace and introduce grappling layers, the fight will start to tilt her way. So this isn't youth versus experience, it's speed versus timing, and that is the hinge point. When this fight starts, the first question is clear. Does Michael Johnson keep space, or does Alexander Hernandez take it away? Because distance decides everything here. For Michael Johnson, the path is discipline. He needs to fight long with speed, angles, and constant movement. Striking on exits, not exchanges, prevents Hernandez from setting his feet or forcing brawls. Counters are key. Hernandez rushes forward aggressively, and Johnson's job is to bait those entries and punish them with sharp left hands. One clean counter does more than extended combinations ever could. If Johnson stays mobile and selective, he can make Hernandez chase shadows. But staying in place is very dangerous. On the other side, Alexander Hernandez needs pressure. His priority is backing Johnson up and limiting angles. Crowd the space, force Johnson towards the fence, and make movement harder. Mixing threats matters here. Even unsuccessful takedown attempts freeze Johnson just long enough to open striking windows. Overhands and body shots land cleaner when Johnson is thinking about level changes. If Hernandez can combine pressure with layered offense, the fight shifts into his kind of chaos. But this isn't about speed versus strength, it's about who controls the geography, and that is where the fight is decided. When this fight starts, the question isn't who's cleaner, but it's who survives the pace. Because this matchup is built on contrast. For Ricky Turcios, his path is volume and relentlessness. He needs to stay in constant motion, throwing often and forcing reactions. Turcios thrives when opponents are mentally taxed, when they are forced to defend, reset, and second guess. Clinch work plays a role here. Even brief tie-ups drain energy and prevent Smotherman from settling into a rhythm. The goal isn't dominance, it's disruption. If Turcios can keep the fight messy and exhausting, mistakes start to appear. But structure neutralizes chaos. On the other side, Cameron Smotherman needs composure. His priority is keeping the fight clean and technical at range. Discipline, not overreacting to feints or volume, prevent Turcios from pulling him into a brawl. Lateral movement is also essential. Staying off the fence limits Turcios' ability to swarm or clinch. Circling and resetting in open space keeps control of where the exchanges happen. If Smotherman maintains structure and avoids prolonged chaos, his precision and calm becomes advantage. So this isn't about activity versus skill, it's about whether order can survive pressure. That is the pressure point. Appreciate you watching. This channel is growing fast because of you guys. If you want more model-based breakdowns, hit subscribe and comment your prediction now.